It rarely begins with a direct attack. More often, it starts with a quiet shift in tone, a glance that lingers too long, or a joke made at your expense. Most people dismiss it. They laugh it off, pretend it doesn't matter, or convince themselves it isn't worth a reaction. But disrespect ignored is rarely neutral. It grows. And by the time you choose to respond, the damage is already done. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this deeply. In a world built on power and reputation, he knew that respect is not something you earn once and keep forever. It is something you enforce moment by moment. Every slight, every test, every subtle dismissal is a probe to see if your boundaries are real. If you fail the test, you are not simply marked as weak, you are marked as safe to violate again. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When you fail to acknowledge that disrespect exists, you are refusing to see the darker dynamics at play. Your silence is not neutral, it is permission. And once you grant that permission, regaining respect becomes twice as hard. So how do you respond when the first flicker of disrespect appears? The answer is silence, but not passivity. Silence, used strategically, creates unpredictability. And unpredictability breeds caution. You do not smile to soften it. You do not explain how it made you feel. You withdraw your energy. You break the rhythm of the moment they were trying to control. That pause, that cold stillness, forces them to feel the weight of their own move. Nietzsche once observed, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." The lesson is clear: you must resist the temptation to lash out in emotion. The one who reacts angrily loses status. The one who stays calm, measured, and disciplined creates doubt. And doubt is more powerful than anger. The next step is exposure. You do not insult or retaliate. You reflect their action back to them, with precision. Hold their gaze, tilt your head slightly, and ask, "Did you mean to say it that way?" Or, "Would you like to repeat that?" Each question is a scalpel, cutting away pretense. You are not denying the attack, you are making them own it publicly. And most won't, because disrespect is rarely bold. It is opportunistic. It thrives only when it feels safe. Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The same is true here. If you let subtle violations pass, they become your fate. You unconsciously teach the world that you are available for mockery, dismissal, or control. But when you expose it calmly and without apology, you make the unconscious visible, and you reclaim control. The deeper truth is that disrespect is never about one moment. It is about reputation. When people see that your boundaries are enforced immediately and consistently, they learn that your silence is not weakness but warning. Your distance is not insecurity but principle. And soon the social current shifts in your favor. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." You do not need rage to command respect. You need presence. You need discipline. You need the willingness to be cold when necessary, because those who disrespect you are not just watching your reaction, so is everyone else in the room. And here lies the final truth. Respect is not demanded, it is radiated. It comes not from noise, but from stillness. Not from retaliation, but from clarity. Not from chasing approval, but from removing access the moment boundaries are crossed. Disrespect thrives on safety. The assumption that you won't respond, that you will tolerate, that you will explain. The moment you break that assumption, with silence, exposure, and calm consequence, you end the cycle before it begins. And in that moment, you stop playing the social game of being liked, and you start playing the power game of being respected. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is often to defend yourself. You feel the heat rise, your heart race, your words form before you've had time to reflect. But the moment you react in anger, you surrender control. You confirm their ability to provoke you. And in that instant, you trade power for impulse. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why is it terrifying? Because self-acceptance requires control over your own shadow, the part of you that longs to lash out. When you master that darkness, you no longer respond on command. Your silence becomes discipline. And discipline always unnerves those who expect chaos. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that unpredictability is a weapon. When your enemies cannot read your reaction, they hesitate. They begin to wonder if they crossed a line, if you are planning something, if they underestimated you. Their imagination punishes them more severely than your words ever could. Nietzsche once said, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous." But here is the paradox. Sometimes silence itself is the truth. When you refuse to dignify disrespect with a reaction, you make the insult visible for what it is: petty, weak, beneath response. You allow their words to rot in the open air, unshielded by your defense. Silence is not the absence of power, it is concentrated power. It is the refusal to be baited. It is the ability to let the other person stew in their own noise while you remain untouched. And the longer you hold that silence, the heavier it becomes. Until the weight shifts and they begin to squirm under it. Think of a courtroom. When a witness hesitates, when a lawyer pauses, when the room grows quiet, suddenly every eye is fixed, every breath held. The silence is louder than shouting. It demands attention, forces reflection, and alters the energy of the room. This is the same silence you carry in daily life when you refuse to react. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For many, the unconscious reaction to disrespect is automatic anger. But once you recognize it, you can choose differently. You can let silence speak in your place. And in that choice, fate turns into strategy. But calm is more than silence. It is presence. When you remain calm in the face of insult, you signal that you are untouchable. Anger would prove they hit a nerve. Laughter would suggest you are masking the pain. But calm, steady stillness communicates one message only: you are in control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." This is why calm carries such strength. It shows that your estimate of the insult is so low, so insignificant, that it is not worth your reaction. You choose what has weight. And by giving none to their words, you strip them of power. Consider how bullies operate. They feed on reaction, fear, anger, defense. Without it, they starve. A calm silence forces them to confront their own emptiness, turns the game back on them. The moment they realize you will not play, they lose interest, or they lose composure. So remember this. Your greatest weapon is not the sharpness of your tongue, but the steadiness of your presence. Your silence is not weakness, it is pressure. Your calm is not passivity, it is mastery. And the one who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. The crowd may cheer the loudest voice, but they respect the quietest strength. And in the end, it is not the one who reacts who wins the game, it is the one who waits in silence while others destroy themselves with noise. Most people cannot tolerate being misunderstood. They rush to explain, to clarify, to ensure everyone knows exactly who they are and what they mean. But in that rush, they give away their greatest advantage: mystery. Because once others can predict you fully, they can control you. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He knew that to be predictable is to be vulnerable. The moment your enemies know exactly how you will respond, they can shape the game around you. But if you are ambiguous, if you remain difficult to read, they hesitate. Hesitation is weakness, and weakness is leverage. Carl Jung once wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." Ambiguity is not about deception alone. It is about owning both your light and your shadow, and revealing only what serves you. When you master this, people cannot easily categorize you. They project their own fears and desires onto your silence. And projection is power, because while they wrestle with their own imagination, you remain free. Nietzsche observed, "It is not when truth is dirty, but when it is shallow, that the lover of knowledge is reluctant to step into its waters." Ambiguity deepens the waters. It forces others to wonder what lies beneath the surface. They cannot skim you, they cannot dismiss you, because they sense that what they see is not all there is. Think about how predators behave. They thrive on predictability. They test, they push, they wait for the expected reaction. But when you respond with something unexpected, a pause, a smirk, a question instead of an answer, the rhythm breaks. They stumble, recalibrate, and in that gap you gain the upper hand. Ambiguity also cultivates fascination. What people cannot easily define, they obsess over. The less you reveal, the more they seek. The less you clarify, the more they speculate. And speculation often builds a reputation far larger than any explanation you could have offered. Carl Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." When you refuse to be fully defined by others, you force them to confront their own unconscious. They see in you what they fear, what they desire, what they envy. And while they project, you hold the mirror steady. Their reaction says more about them than it does about you. Consider relationships. The person who overshares loses intrigue. The one who leaves space for mystery holds attention. Not because they are manipulative, but because the human mind is wired to fill gaps. When you leave gaps deliberately, others fill them with stories that elevate you. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Ambiguity, when paired with calm, becomes unshakable. You do not need to answer every question, you do not need to justify every move. You simply remain steady, letting the silence and the mystery do the work for you. So here is the lesson: do not fear being misunderstood. Do not rush to define yourself completely. Let others guess, let them wonder, let them hesitate. Because in that uncertainty you gain space. And in that space you gain control. Power is not only in what you reveal, but in what you withhold. Not only in clarity, but in ambiguity. Not only in being known, but in being impossible to predict. And the one who cannot be predicted is the one who cannot be controlled. Reputation is not built on truth alone, it is built on perception. And perception is rarely shaped by long explanations. It is shaped by presence, by aura, by the subtle signals you send without speaking a word. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that reputation is a weapon sharper than the sword. A good reputation shields you from attack, but a strong reputation makes attack unthinkable. It is not about being liked, it is about being respected. And respect is earned not by talking about who you are, but by embodying it in silence. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why terrifying? Because when you accept yourself, you no longer bend to win approval. You stop performing, stop chasing validation, stop explaining yourself endlessly. And in that stillness, your aura begins to radiate. Others sense it without knowing why. Your presence carries weight. Nietzsche observed, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." Reputation thrives on this principle. People don't want the messy details of your reality, they want the image that reinforces what they already believe. The wise do not fight illusions, they use them. If the crowd wants to see you as powerful, let them. If they want to underestimate you, let them. Both illusions serve you if you know how to hold them. Aura is the invisible atmosphere you carry with you. It is the way silence follows your entrance into a room. It is the way people lower their voices without realizing why. It is not about force but about presence. A presence cultivated by self-acceptance, discipline, and restraint. Machiavelli advised rulers to appear both loved and feared, but to be feared if they must choose. Fear here does not mean terror, it means caution, hesitation, respect. And aura is what creates that hesitation. It is the subtle question you plant in others' minds: what will happen if I cross this person? Carl Jung believed that the integration of shadow, owning the darker, hidden parts of ourselves, is what gives us depth. He said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. When you integrate your own shadow, you stop fearing exposure. Your calm is no longer fragile because you are not hiding. That depth is felt by others as gravity, as something they cannot easily shake. Reputation collapses when you chase it too openly. The more you try to explain yourself, the weaker you appear. But when you stand steady, when you let silence and presence speak, your reputation strengthens itself. People will argue about you, speculate about you, even doubt you. But if your aura is consistent, the doubt always bends back toward respect. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This is the essence of aura. Stop trying to argue for who you are. Be it. Embodied truth speaks louder than words. So remember this. Your reputation is not what you say, it is what people feel when you walk into a room. It is not what you post, but how you hold yourself in silence. It is not what you defend, but what you radiate without effort. Explanations are fragile. Aura is untouchable. And in the game of power, reputation built on aura is the only shield that never cracks. The ultimate form of power is not in attack, not in persuasion, not even in reputation. It is in presence. When your very being commands respect, you no longer need to explain, defend, or convince. You stop chasing control, because control begins to orbit you naturally. Niccolo Machiavelli warned that rulers who defend themselves too loudly lose authority. The moment you explain, you lower yourself to the level of your accuser. But the one who remains calm, who does not bend to answer every slight, creates doubt far stronger than rebuttal. Doubt lingers longer than words, and it erodes the courage of those who challenge you. Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." This is the essence of transcending defense. When you define yourself by choices, not by accusations, you no longer live as a reflection of others' opinions. You live as the author of your own identity. Nietzsche observed, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Purpose makes defense unnecessary. When you are grounded in your why, insults feel irrelevant, distractions feel weightless, and every attack is reduced to noise. Your presence itself becomes the proof of your strength. True presence does not come from avoiding weakness, it comes from integrating it. Carl Jung believed that wholeness emerges only when we accept our shadows. When you own your flaws, no one can use them against you. When you embrace your contradictions, no one can destabilize you. This acceptance radiates outward as an aura that silences critics without a word. Think of the rare individuals who carry this aura. They walk into a room and people instinctively quiet down, not because of titles or threats, but because their presence is undeniable. Their calmness unsettles louder voices. Their stillness feels heavier than shouting. It is not performance, it is mastery. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. To defend desperately is to mirror the insecurity of the one who attacks you. To remain composed is to rise above the game entirely. You win not by trading blows, but by refusing to step into the arena. Defense implies weakness. It signals that you are affected, that you need to justify, that you fear being misunderstood. But presence implies authority. It tells the world, I know who I am and I do not need your approval. And that unshakable certainty is more intimidating than any counterattack. So how do you cultivate this state? First, by silence. Learning when not to react, when to let the weight of your stillness speak louder than your voice. Second, by integration. Accepting every part of yourself so no accusation surprises you. Third, by clarity. Knowing your purpose so deeply that no distraction pulls you away. This is what it means to move beyond defense. You do not deny the game, but you no longer play it on others' terms. Your existence itself becomes the answer. Your presence itself becomes the strategy. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when you finally become, fully and without apology, you discover that presence is not something you perform, it is something you embody. It is power that cannot be faked, borrowed, or stolen. So remember this. Explanations are fragile. Defenses are wasted breath. But presence, calm, silent, integrated presence, is untouchable. And when you reach that state, you no longer chase power. You are power.